is Vishal, and I am actually a relationship coach. I'm the founder of Relationships DNA, and like I said, a coach, speaker, and influencer on social media. I studied at two universities, the University of Birmingham and Warwick Business School in the UK. And my career has kind of moved. Well, I'm a coach now, but I used to work for large IT companies like Compaq and Logica CMG, now called CGI. Compaq, obviously now part of HP. The reason why I tell you this is because I'm quite used to doing this kind of presentations. I used to do them a lot during my work time, especially in the corporate world. And I'm because of that, I'm able to bring this material in a different way to you, or to all of you, and people that I also work with. So one of the things, although I've always wondered, is, and I'm sure a lot of us wonder, is why am I here? What is my purpose on this earth? What's the reason that I've taken birth on this earth? And this question actually led me to an event that I actually experienced. And this may altogether be an unconscious event, but it was something that I experienced between 2012 and 2013, which led me to actually find what the answer was to that question. What is my purpose here on earth? And that transformation that I went through at that time was transformation at all levels, all the way from my health, my financial situation, and most importantly, my relationship with my wife. So since then, the transformation that I went through, I've been lucky to meet a lot of people in the self-development industry. You probably recognize this man here. He is Bob Proctor from The Secret. Have you ever seen The Secret, the documentary? It's available on Netflix. So I was lucky to meet him last year in January, and a lot of the things that we talked about were actually things that I actually went through myself in that year of 2012, 2013, and all the laws of the universe that he talks about actually applied to me, and it was almost like a deja vu, you could say that, talking about that. So I've also been working a lot here in London. I give a lot of workshops, seminars. You can see me here on the top left, having a private audience at a local London hotel. And at the bottom right, you can see me here having a public audience with London local authority. So this is a little bit of what I've been doing, and a little bit about myself. I've got a family. I've got a wife. Married for the last 17 years. 2 kids. I live in Harrow, which is kind of northwest of London, and I've transitioned now into becoming and I've become a full-time relationship coach, all the way from my career in IT. Okay, so that's a little bit about myself, and this presentation is really about the 5 shifts that I want to actually share with you with regards to relationships, and how to actually, and like I said, it's very much about an inside-out approach. So how do you actually connect to yourself so that you can connect better with others? And it's really about connecting with yourself, and how we can use the 5 elements that Dunia quite talks about in the work that she does. So these my promise to you is that I will share with you the 5 shifts, because I want to give you this background before I get into talking about these 5 elements. These 5 shifts that will show you how you can thrive if you have a current relationship, or how you can also attract an ideal partner into your life. Because if you think about it, when you are connected to yourself, when you connect to your real self, you attract the right kind of person into your life. Yeah. Now, the shift 1 is the conscious mind is just the tip of an iceberg. Okay, that's what I call the shift 1. Now, I want to ask all of you at this stage, what do you feel the bottom of the iceberg there, you can see in the image, represents? What do you think it represents?
It's the unconscious mind.
The unconscious mind. Yeah, absolutely. The unconscious, a lot of people call it the subconscious. So this is a man, Sigmund Freud. You might have read about him. He actually introduced this concept of the conscious and the unconscious mind. And here is a quote which says, "There is a powerful force within us, an unilluminated part of the mind, separate from the conscious mind that is constantly at work, molding our thoughts, feelings, and actions." Okay, so if you can imagine that the unconscious mind, and nowadays a lot of people call it the subconscious mind, is actually in control, pretty much in control of our life. Whatever happens to us in terms of our health, our relationships, our financial situation is pretty much controlled by this unconscious mind, which was quite nicely described here by Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was a neurologist back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he did a lot of work with the mind, with regards to the mind. Now, the conscious versus the unconscious. Now, here's where I want to tell you the difference between the two, right? So the conscious mind contains all the thoughts, memories, feelings, and wishes of which we are aware of at any given moment, okay? And the unconscious mind is a reservoir of feelings, beliefs, desires, and past traumas that are outside of our conscious awareness. So very different, both of them. Now, there's another concept I want to introduce here, which is the self-image versus the real you. There's a good book, and you may want to take a note of this. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. You might have even read it. It's by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and it talks a lot about the self-image in there. Now, in the unconscious mind, oh, you got it there, Dinia. Well done.
I haven't read it yet, but yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So in the unconscious mind is a programmed perception of who you are, your self-image. This is how you and the world sees you. Now, if you think about it, you know, the way the world sees us, the way we see ourselves, you know, is very different to the way that we truly are, that our real self is, right? In fact, there's a difference between how the world sees us as well as how you see yourself. So the way the world sees us is different to the way we see ourselves. But if we kind of ignore that for now, that is also different to how we ourselves are, our real self. So if you imagine that the real self sits in the center of our consciousness and the real world sees us, our self-image is here, the way the real world sees us and how we see ourselves, then in between there's a gap, right? So this self-image, there's also an image of the real you, you know, the one that sits in the center of your consciousness, that is often hidden by, I call them blockages or blocks or limitations, some people call them. So if this is the real you in the center of your consciousness, and this is your self-image, how the world sees you, or even how you see yourself, the gap in between is actually full of limitations, full of blockages, full of beliefs that a lot of us have grown up with, right? So what we need to do, now you may be asking, what has all of this got to do with quality of relationships that you have, okay? So what this has to do with relationships is the further away your self-image is from the real you, the worse the quality of your relationships, okay? So if your self-image is way up here, how the world sees you and how you see yourself, and that's the real you, it means there's a lot of limitations, a lot of blockages, a lot of beliefs that you hold, especially detrimental beliefs, that are keeping those two apart. And the further away that is from each other, the worse the quality of your relationship. Yeah. Now, to improve the quality of your relationships, one has to bring the self-image as close as possible to the real you. Now, that was kind of obvious, right? If we want to kind of have really good relationships, then we just need to bring this as close as possible to our real self. Okay, so how do we go about doing this? And this is where the 5 elements come in. This can only be achieved by accessing your unconscious mind. Okay, so because all of this exists in your unconscious mind, the only way to kind of work with those blocks, the feelings, the limitations, is to actually access your unconscious mind and then work with those and then bring them down so that your self-image comes down and meets the real you. And to put this in perspective, this is where I was before my transformation. I was up there. I had all these beliefs, limitations, wanting to, be the richest man in the world. At that age, in my 30s, wanted to make a lot of money and wanting to do all sorts of things. And then the universe kind of said, right, Vishal, I'm going to drop you down all the way and push you into earth. And that's what it did. Literally just put me in that tunnel. And all I had to do was then figure out how I can access my real self. And this is what I share with others, because up until then, I was in a very difficult situation in my relationship with my wife. We were about to separate, get divorced. And everything else was falling down as well. But it wasn't until I went within myself to access my unconscious mind and actually see what's going on inside of myself that I found the answer to everything. And as soon as I changed from within, my external environment changed, right? Mahatma Gandhi says this, that the change you want to see in the world, be the change you want to see in the world. You might have heard of that quote. Bob Proctor, he's got a whole chapter based on everything is but a looking glass. So everything that we experience in our world is actually a reflection of what is within us. And for me, during that time, what I went through was actually a reflection of what was within me. And it wasn't until I worked on myself that I actually came out of it and my external environment then changed. My relationship with the same wife, been married with her 17 years. At one time, we were about to separate. Now we're in a lovely, beautiful relationship. Okay, so this is what I share with people. So the way we can actually get that self-image to meet the real self is to be able to access that unconscious mind and work with the 5 elements so that we can actually bring it as close as possible to the real self. Okay. Now, shift 2 is, how, before we actually access the unconscious mind, how do we actually identify what are the blocks, beliefs, and past experiences that are actually sabotaging our relationships, that are actually sabotaging our life? What are they? Okay. How do we identify them? There's a really nice quote here by Mahatma Gandhi. You all know probably who Mahatma Gandhi is. He says, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny. Okay. Now, if you think that all those beliefs are actually coming from your unconscious mind, which is possibly about 80 to 90% of your whole mind, then if those beliefs are becoming your destiny, who really is in control of your life? It's the unconscious mind, right? And we don't even, we have nothing, we don't even know what's in there until you go in and access it. Yeah. So in order to take back control of your life and to actually start experiencing the life that you want, living a purposeful life, we need to go and access the unconscious mind. Okay. So before we do that, let's identify and see how we can actually identify these blocks, beliefs, and past experiences. So I've got this image of a triangle here, which actually represents the mind. I've divided that into the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. Now, R represents relationships, you could say, or you could say results. they are the relationships, the quality of our relationships. We actually have an idea, they sit in our conscious mind. We know what kind of relationship we have, whether it's with our partner, whether it's with our parents, whether it's with our friends. We know the kind of relationships we have with them. So that sits in the conscious mind. Now, there's another thing, which is A. A stands for action and non-action. So, what kind of actions are we doing? And we're pretty much aware of what kind of actions we're doing. And that also determines the quality of our relationship. So let's say, for example, it's my wife's birthday. I buy her flowers. I take her out to dinner. That determines the quality of our relationship. If I also don't do that, so a non-action, then that also determines the quality of our relationship, right? It's going to go the other way. So A stands for action and non-action. M stands for mindset. So what kind of mindset do you have towards your relationship? Is it is it a caring mindset you have? Is it a loving mindset you have? Or is a mindset of jealousy, selfishness? What kind of mindset do you have for a relationship? And we're pretty much aware about that. So that sits in the conscious mind. Okay. What we are not aware of are the emotional blocks that we carry. And these sit in the unconscious mind. Now, we're not aware of the beliefs which also we carry, which we've formed whilst we are growing up, seeing our parents live the life they live, etc. And what also we're not aware of are stored past experiences, a lot of them, especially when we are under the age of 8, when our cognitive mind hasn't fully developed. We went through certain experiences. As children, we soak everything up, and all of that gets repressed or suppressed into our unconscious mind. Okay, so I'll give you an example just to to show you how this works. I mean, for now, those stored past experiences create certain kind of beliefs in us. They create emotional blocks, and they determine the quality of relationships we have, whether it's with our partners, our siblings, our parents, etc. It also works the other way around. So if in your relationship, let's say there is a lot of arguments going on, if the relationship is not that good, then and you don't actually release those experiences, then those get stored too into our mind, and it's kind of becomes a vicious cycle. Okay. Now, I'll give you here an example. Let's say there are there's relationships where there is doubt and lies. Okay, so maybe there is infidelity, there is no integrity in a relationship, there is a lot of cheating maybe. Now, when I work with people who've been through those kind of experiences in a relationship, what I generally tend to find is a lot of them have had violations of some kind in their childhood, and especially in this case, verbal abuse. So they might have come across verbal abuse from their parents, so either directly, or they were in an environment where there was a lot of abuse going on, arguing between the parents, etc. Okay? And they formed a belief that I'm not good enough. So if a parent keeps on telling you, why didn't you do well in school, or the neighbor's child is doing much better than you, you come up with a feeling that you're just not good enough. Okay, you're not living up to their expectations, right? And this creates a block of humiliation in your mind. Okay, and humiliation basically, effectively means that you don't deserve to be treated in that way. Yeah? Now, what this then translates into are actions and a mindset in your relationships where you're kind of wishy-washy, you're unable to express yourself fully, you do not communicate well, and this leads to a relationship of dishonesty, cheating, you feel like you're not listened to, you're not heard, etc. Okay. Now, a lot of you may, this information may resonate with you. Now, the way the 5 elements come in, and I'll in this example I tell you, is this part of a relationship generally tends to be the part of the mind that actually contributes to a relationship like this, where there's a dishonesty, cheating, where you feel like you're not listened to, is the throat area, the shoulders and the throat area. Okay. Now the fifth element, which is space, is what I work with when we have to release the emotions that are stuck around this area. Okay. Now, a lot of my work is, as you can probably tell, is with the mind. So I give exercises based on meditations, mindfulness exercises, even mantras, which are based on the element of space. Okay. So that's an example of how one of the elements comes into play. I mean, I can talk about the element of wind, which is another element. That is to do with a lack of compassion, lack of love in a relationship where there is no connection, no deep connection with a partner. And this is where we use the element of wind to actually work with people on that are having issues with all those kind of things. The other element is fire. The fire is a lovely element which is pretty much used for people who are going through relationships where they feel there is control or there is manipulation in a relationship. Okay. The water element is used in relationships where they feel there is no intimacy. There is issues with pleasure, sexuality, sensuality. The water element is very good for that. Okay, and finally, the element of earth is used in a relationship where there is no stability, there is no certainty. Okay. So all of these elements are used in many different ways through meditations, mindfulness exercises, like I said, through mantras, etc., in order to connect with these elements and work with them so that we are able to release these emotions that are causing all these kind of issues in one's relationship. Okay? Shift 3 is, fine, now we know how to identify those blocks, beliefs, experiences, etc., that are actually affecting your relationship. How can we then access the unconscious mind? Right? So through the path of least resistance to the unconscious mind. I'd just like to ask you at this stage, when I say the path of least resistance, what does it mean to you?
Acceptance, in a way, or letting go, releasing.
Yeah, acceptance. There's a big clue in the background. The image kind of gives a very big clue as to what it means by the path of least resistance.
Sorry, Mariana, you said something?
Yeah, I just said silence. Silence.
Oh, okay.
Silence. Yeah, kind of. You follow the path of silence. Absolutely. It's what the image in the background tells you. There's a river flowing, and you can see there is a big rock in the middle, and the river is taking a path, which is the path of least resistance. Because if it were to, crash through the rock, or it were to go over it, we've never seen rivers go over really big rocks like that, or go through rocks like that. What a river does is it takes a path of least resistance to go into a place of abundance, which is the sea, the ocean. And nature has a lovely way of giving this information to us. When we use all these metaphors, it tells us that the best way to get to a place or a life of abundance, or whether it's the abundance in health, wealth, relationships, is to take a path of least resistance. Right. Another example I can give you is, has anyone seen like a fly just on a living room window, just bashing itself against the window and trying to get out? And for hours and hours and hours it tries, but it's unable to get out. Right? At the end of the day, you see it, and maybe in the next morning, it's lying dead there, just having tried so hard. And yet, maybe just a couple of feet away, another window is open, and where it just had that inclination to just fly a couple of feet, it would have gone out to freedom, right? So this, a lot of us, what we try and do is we try and bash our heads on the wrong window, right? We keep on bashing our heads, and that's not taking the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance would have been to just move a couple of feet and go out of the window that's open for you. Okay, so this is what we use. We use the path of least resistance to actually access the unconscious mind. So the path of least resistance, here's a beautiful quote by Megan Dome, who's a popular author. She's based in the United States. The path of least resistance has a lot going for it. The comfort zone isn't where you lose yourself, it's where you find yourself. Okay? Sometimes we feel that we really need to really put in a lot of effort to actually achieve something. Yet, you see under somebody else, and this may have happened to many of us, you may think about your schooling days, or where you were in college, where somebody who puts in the least effort gets the highest grades and just sails through. So this is what it means by the path of least resistance. Simply put, it is the easiest path through which you can reach your destination. Okay. Now, how can we, access the unconscious mind via the path of least resistance? Now, I have got 5 different exercises here. Mindfulness exercises, which are mindfulness with sound, mindfulness with focus, mindfulness with visualization and imagination, mindfulness with observation, and mindfulness with breathing. Okay. Now, what I found in my own journey when I tried to access my unconscious mind was a lot of these didn't work for me. The one that worked for me really well was mindfulness with sound. I mean, many of us have tried, where somebody sent us a YouTube meditation or, some kind of meditation, and they've told us, this has worked wonders for me. And yet when we try it, nothing happens, right? We've come across a lot of those kind of things that people have sent us, said, and, this has really worked for me. And we do it and it doesn't work. Well, this is the thing. We need to find our own path of least resistance. And for each one of us, it's different. For me, it was mindfulness with sound. No matter how hard I tried mindfulness with breathing, it didn't work for me. I couldn't access my unconscious mind. So this is almost, like how DNA is different for all of us. Our blood type is different. We need to find what actually works for us. Is it sound? Is it focus? Is it visualization? Is it observation? What is it that actually works for us to access our unconscious mind? Okay. So we come to shift 4, which now is once we access the unconscious mind using one of those methods, then how do we make the unconscious conscious? Okay. It's all about making whatever lies in our unconscious mind, the beliefs, the feelings, the experiences that we've stored there, whilst we were growing up. How do we bring them up? How do we make them conscious and take back control of our lives, of our relationships? Okay. Now here's a lovely quote. I love this man. If anybody's read about his work, he's Carl Jung. He was a psychologist, again in the time of Sigmund Freud, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And this quote, he says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Okay? So until you make everything that's in your unconscious conscious, until you make it and bring it up, it will keep on directing your life. And what do we call it? We say, oh, this was our fate. This was meant to happen, right? A lot of the Indian traditions have a word called naseeb. right? They say, oh, this was our naseeb, this was our fate, this was meant to happen. Well, I tell you this, having been through what I've been through, that it is not our naseeb. We are such powerful beings that we can actually live a purposeful life. Whatever it is that we were meant to live here on this earth, this is what we can actually do. We can access our unconscious mind and live a full life, right? And not just be bounced around by the external environment and live a life which is, half lived, right? So this is how we access the unconscious mind and make things conscious. I've labeled this slide shaken, not stirred class, or maybe too early to think about this, and not suggesting at all for you to have vodka martini at this time of the day, but in order to bring the dirt up from the bottom of the glass, it needs to be shaken. You've seen this when you've got a glass of water and you've got dirt at the bottom and you shake the glass, what happens is the dirt comes up, right? So in the same way, the unconscious mind too needs to be shaken to bring up those past traumas, feelings, emotions that are stored within. Okay? Now, how do we make that unconscious conscious? Based on your path of least resistance, which is, we talked about the exercises of mindfulness with sound, whether it's mindfulness with observation, visualization, whatever your path of least resistance. Based on that, we then access the unconscious mind, and that allows us to actually shake it, to bring all of that gunk up, okay? Now, the idea is that once it comes up, is to release and replace that blocked energy. And this is where I use the 5 elements that I described earlier. Once we release that blocked energy, once it's been shaken, with all those mindfulness exercises, whatever suits you, it is released. And this takes place at a very deep level. If you think about it, we're working right down at the energetic level, okay? So where the problem exists, it's like gardening. A lot of us have done gardening where, we've done weeding, and when you just snip the weeds on top, they grow again. We need to dig them right down into the ground, take them out from the roots, and then they won't grow again. Okay, so this is going right down to that energetic level where we actually use these 5 elements of earth, fire, water, air, and space to go right into our unconscious mind and take all these emotions that we've stored for many, many years, these energies, these beliefs, limitations, etc., and uproot them and take them out. Okay, and that's what actually I went through myself, and that's why I'm able to talk about this, because when I went through that transition in 2012, 2013, that's what actually happened. Everything was just taken out. So when this blocked energy is released, it has to be replaced. We have to replace this energy. And again, I use these 5 elements because when you think about these 5 elements of earth, fire, water, wind, and space, these are pure elements, okay? Pure healing elements. And when we replace these energies that have come out with these pure elements, then these are healing elements. They heal those parts of your mind, and you start almost like you're starting afresh. Okay. Now, it's similar to what we don't want to happen is, how when somebody gives up smoking, for example, what they generally tend to do is they might take up alcohol, or they might take up overeating. So they replace one habit with another bad habit. And this is exactly what we don't want to happen, is when the energy is released, we want that to be replaced by pure healing energy or pure healing elements. And these are the 5 elements that I use to actually replace that energy with. Okay. Now, this shift, which is once those elements have replaced that energy, this is a very important shift. which I really want to share with you, because this really gives you the transformation that you're looking for. And I've called the shift moving towards unconditional love is the ultimate aim. You know, that's what we are as human beings. We've come here on this earth to do. You know, we've come to move towards unconditional love, right? Because that's what we are. We are love itself. Okay. There's a beautiful quote here, a quote by a Persian philosopher. You might have seen many quotes from him. It says, "The universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything that you want, you already are." You've got everything that you want within yourself. You've just got to go within and find that. And like I said earlier, as soon as you find that within, you see that on the outside. We as human beings do it the wrong way. We look for things on the outside. We want to pursue something, you know, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, you know, we keep on going outside for it. We don't look within us. When we change things within us, whatever you desire, actually you attract, right? And many people have told us this. I mean, if you watch The Secret, you know, there are many people on that documentary that have told us this, the law of attraction. Now, I want to talk about unconditional love, because that's what this shift, and this is the final shift, is about. So unconditional universal love, agape, if I pronounce that right in the Greek language, is the highest frequency of all. The other thing that we've got to, you know, learn about is how to work in terms of frequencies and vibrations, okay? So the highest frequency of all at 205 hertz and upwards is unconditional love. Now, unconditional love doesn't mean we love everything about a person. Okay? It means that for us to be happy, we don't need them to be different. So in that sense, you know, for me to be happy, I don't need my wife to be any different. She can be the person she is, she wants to be. I can be the person I want to be. So that is unconditional love. Okay? This state can only be attained if your cup is full and overflowing. Just like the image in the background, if your cup is full and overflowing, then you can keep on giving, giving, giving. You don't need to take, because the energy that you're getting, the divine energy, I would say, is coming right through you and filling you up. And then it's all about just being in that state where you are all the time giving. Okay? So what happens when your cup is not full? You tend to be attracted to someone who has qualities that you don't have. So I'll give you my example. When I was going through that phase, and before actually, when I was actually looking for a partner, you know, to get married, the kind of partners that I came across were ones that were actually there who would listen to me. I love people who would listen to me. I love people who were self-confident, who had high self-esteem. And the reason for that was because I didn't have that at that time. I had no high self-esteem. If someone wanted to ask me to talk in front of 50 people, which now I can quite easily do, at that time, I would shiver, I would sweat, I wouldn't be able to talk. A squeak wouldn't come out of my mouth. Okay? So this, you know, this is called operating from a place of lack, because this is how we all tend to look for our relationships, our partners. What is it that they can give us, right? So initially they will fill that lack, but after some time, the lack will no longer be filled and expectations will arise. So it's only for some time that your partner can keep on filling that lack. She can only listen to me so much, right? And she can only give me that love so much. You know, once the kids came, that love is divided between us. So, but I still have the same expectations, and this is where issues in relationships begin, because at one time, you know, my wife was filling all those expectations, and now she isn't. So why does one operate from lack? You have certain desires that you buried in the past due to traumatic experiences. So in my case, you know, in my past, I buried a desire to have a deep connection, because when I was in school, I was bullied. You know, I wasn't able to have those kind of deep connections that a teenager would have with their friends. And thus I was looking for this deep connection. in my partner. So they got buried by the mind as a survival mechanism. So at that time, when I was young, as a teenager, it was buried by my own mind as a survival. Otherwise, I would have gone mental, or I would have been hurt emotionally at that time. But my mind, what it does, it separates that part of me which wants that deep connection. But as you grow older, and you come into adulthood, these desires are still there, and they come to haunt us. So the idea is that they come to us in experiences. And in my case, it was initially my wife gave me that deep connection, that love that I needed. And then once the kids were born, that love was divided and it went away. In fact, a lot of it was dedicated to the kids. And for me, that was a loss of that deep connection. And that experience was telling me a lot about what I needed to do within myself in order to integrate that which I had lost before when I was a child. Okay? So integration is a process of moving towards unconditional love by lovingly including your buried desires into your real self. Okay? So I then went back into my childhood. I'll show you the steps that you take, how to integrate. First step is to identify the parts that you buried. So in my case, it was that deep connection that I longed, that I'd buried. Why did I bury it? Because, of the experience that I was having then, of being bullied, not having, wanting to make friends, but not having any. And it was buried whilst I was a teenager, a young teenager, 13, 14 years old. So what I did then to integrate is to then lovingly take that and integrate that. And this is a process that you do within yourself. So the outcome is when you do that, you move towards unconditional love, because I found that deep connection that I was looking for in my wife. So I'm no longer expecting that from her. So I'll move towards completeness, towards wholeness. And thus I'm no longer yearning for it. And I'm able to just give, and give, because my cup is now full. Yeah. So I no longer operate from lack. I no longer have any expectations. This transforms my relationships, now in a really beautiful, loving relationship with her. And now we are, we complement each other rather than complete each other. We're not looking to complete each other like that, because once that happens, then you're left stranded. What we do is we are walking side by side like this.
So these were the 5 shifts I wanted to share with you today. Here is a summary. To attract your ideal partner or thrive in your current relationship, or even if you want to connect to your real self, you must understand that the conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg representing the mind. You must also identify your blocks, beliefs, and past experiences that are sabotaging you. You must find your path of least resistance to access the unconscious mind. And you must make the unconscious conscious. You must also, finally, move towards unconditional love. Now here's a testimonial I wanted to share with you. This lady came into my event, which I held in central London just at the beginning of this year. She went through my training course after that, and this is what she wrote on her Instagram page. She goes, "Vishal Shah, this man is awesome. By the way, not blowing my own trumpet here, but just trying to show you what the possibility is." She says, "Contact him if you need guidance with relationships, be it with your current partner or attracting someone into your life. He teaches you how to connect with yourself so you can connect with others better. It works." Many more testimonials have been left on my Facebook group. So if you want to release the blocks trapped in your unconscious mind, if you want to connect to your real self, and if you want to channel your energy towards what matters most, if you really want to take charge of your life, then this is for you. Every journey begins with the first step.